What's going on, friends? Welcome back to another New World video. Today we're going to be talking about the current state of the game. How is New World in early 2024? Should you come back if you've played in the past? If you've never played before, is the game worth it? You may have seen a lot of people describing this as a dead game, especially recently. There has been a lot of negative discussion around New World, a lot of the current community for the game. I mean, if you just hop over to Reddit, you know, it is an absolute bundle of joy over here. However, I do believe that a lot of it is not completely unfounded. So today I'm going to be talking about my opinion on the game, somebody who's played the game for thousands of hours, almost every single update, made a lot of videos. I generally, you know, pay very close attention to New World as a content creator for the game. And you might be thinking, well, this guy's just going to be biased then. He's just going to tell us New World is great and that we just, you know, need to pay more money on the store and stuff and go watch his Twitch stream. No, honestly, we are going to be, you know, telling the truth here. I'm going to talk about the bad in New World, and there is quite a lot of bad. And, you know, the good and potentially things to look forward to as well. There is obviously going to be some degree of bias. I will acknowledge that as a New World content creator. But generally, there are quite a lot of gripes and things that I want to say about New World. Maybe some of this might make its way in front of AGS. I think it's unlikely that it does. But either way, potentially you guys will find this video useful. You know, opinions of somebody who spends a lot of time every day talking to disgruntled New World community members, new players, old players, you know, kind of a little bit of everything, and give you guys a rundown on what I think about New World in 2024 so far. With that out of the way, I'm going to do the obligatory like and subscribe and all of that stuff. If you guys enjoy this content, it does, especially these days with the current way that New World is right now. Any likes, any comments, any subscriptions, subscribers, that all does help out. But with that being said, let's jump on into the video, shall we? So we're going to kick things off with talking about why are we doing this video now in 2024? For a lot of people, the concept of New World like being dead, the game being over, happened, you know, quite a while ago. It has sort of happened around this time where the game came out and then vroom, nosedived into obscurity for a lot of MMO players. Well, the answer is that after New World came out, and whilst it was a pretty shocking release, fun, you know, to have all those players kind of at the same time, and you had that new MMO experience, it was riddled with bugs, and a lot of people wrote off the game around that time. However, later on, basically a year after the game came out, they had the Brimstone Sands and Fresh Start servers. Brimstone Sands was kind of like an expansion, but it was free, and Fresh Start servers were basically an opportunity to join in and jump in again on a brand new server. Nobody could transfer over who was level 60, so it was kind of supposed to be even playing ground for everybody to hop in. And it turned out it was pretty successful. The game peaked at 137,000 concurrent, which did put it back into the top 10 on Steam for the time, with a pretty significant increase to the overall player base. But as you can see, within a few months, Amazon had managed to throw that all away again, with some slight bumps here and there as they introduced this seasonal format where basically every 3 months there's a reasonably big update where they add in like a new dungeon, some new skins. Now we have a season pass as well, which is battle pass. But overall, you know, the player number is kind of declining pretty heftily and not really doing too much for most of 2023 until we get to the end of 2023, and around about that same time they release the Rise of the Angry Earth expansion. Now this was a paid expansion, first time that they've done this. It also increased the level cap to 65, introduced mounts and a bunch of other features. It wasn't as popular, probably about half as popular. Yeah, we get about half the concurrent play numbers here. But still, I would say going, you know, from as low as 20k back up to 77k, 166% gain of players is actually pretty solid. But unfortunately, history continues to repeat itself as now we are losing all those players again. In fact, this time it's especially bad because the player spike wasn't really that big for the expansion because it was, I guess, paid. You know, that kind of limited the number of people that would jump in and give it a go again. We didn't really get that much of a boost, and now the fall off is, you know, even worse. We have the average players getting almost below 10,000, which has never happened before, and the peak players going under 17,000 in the last 30 days. And to put this into comparison, if we look back at 2023, I think the lowest peak players we had was about 20k, and in 2022, the lowest was 22,000. So yeah, we're quite a bit under peak players, and average players I think is also looking pretty rough as well. August of 2023 saw us go as low as 12,000 concurrent, July of 2022 saw us go as low as 13,000 concurrent. And potential spoilers, I hope that I'm wrong here, but I do think these numbers are going to continue to be red for quite some time. In fact, we're going to be waiting around that same time again this year, you know, that sort of September, October. If we go back over here, it's sort of October, November. It's sort of towards the end of each year where the game kind of makes a somewhat recovery in player numbers, but I do think it is going to be getting very low before we get there. Some people would probably say too low. I mean, if we take a look at the number of people playing on each server right now in New World, there's only a couple of servers here. I think we have Nyx, Nisa, Valhalla, and Lilith, which still all peak over 1,000 players at their sort of peak hours. We've got Lilith hauling in 1,347, going down to Nyx here, which is on EU. This is a fresh start server, just over 1,000 here. And then I think everything under there, oh no, there are a couple of servers that still peak over 1,000. If I move down to my server here on Barry, we peak at 625, and then the lowest server here, which is AP Southeast of Sutek, man, these guys don't even get over 100 players. It is sad times for some players on some New World servers. So what exactly is going on here? How is it that Amazon managed to release the game, get a lot of players, lose almost all of them, get a few back for Brimstone Sands, and then lose them again, get them back for the Rise of the Angry Earth expansion, and then lose them again? Is there some sort of like hole in the bottom of New World where players just keep draining out of? The answer is yes. It is called the end game, and it's basically non-existent. This can be demonstrated through Reddit, actually. If we take a look at Reddit here, we have several posts that I see on Reddit from time to time where it's new players coming in, and they say that they're enjoying the game, they've played other MMOs, they're playing New World, and they find it to be pretty fun, but they hear a lot of negative things about the game. Now, I've seen quite a few of these posts, and the negative that we're referring to is this is a new player here, and then we go to the other side where we have a veteran player, and they're saying, you know, it's time for us to admit that New World is going to be shut down, basically. So, you know, this is the polarity of New World. Recently, over the past sort of couple years, Amazon have been making a lot of concentrated effort to revise and you know, improve the leveling experience in New World. They've been adding lots of quality of life. They've been making the game smoother and easier to play, reducing bloat, making itemization easier, making getting to max gear score easier. The way I kind of like to talk about it as a metaphor is, imagine that you go to a hotel. You're going to stay a night, or you're going to stay a week in a hotel, and the lobby, the entrance to the hotel, it's nice, it's clean, it's shiny. The reception is good. You know the service is immaculate, like they're there straight away. They take your bags, you get into the elevator to the lift, and you go up to your room. That's all pretty smooth as well. And then you open your door into your room, and it's a little dank, dark box of depression. It smells of wee. There's no light switch, you know, it's just devoid of any love, and that is kind of New World's endgame. You spend this time leveling up and having a pretty fun time, you know, that you go around the map, and the game looks beautiful. Mounts now make it easier to move around, but when you get to endgame, you just end up with not a lot to do. We have expeditions, so if we go here, this is basically all of New World's endgame summed up in this screen right here. We have expeditions and mutated expeditions. You basically don't do normal expeditions, you just do the mutated version, because the normal version is super easy. You'll do them for some quests, and that's it. Elite Trials is the Sandworm. Now, the funny thing about this is a piece of content that they introduced in Season 2, which was sort of in the summer of 2023. After that, they did Season 3, which was the expansion, and they made this content defunct because it gives you items of a previous gear score. 700 is now the max. This was when 625 gear score was the max. Now, in my opinion, it would maybe take them like a week or two to update the loot table, but they just don't seem to want to do that. So despite spending a lot of time and effort making this content, you know, polishing up the lobby, they then just leave it to, I don't know, decay. It's not doing anything, which is very strange. And like I say, mutated expeditions, we do have the cross-server capabilities these days. So, you know, if you don't have a group for a dungeon, you can just hit the random button, tell it whether you're playing tank, healer, or DPS, hit the Q button, and that's it. You're queued for everything, for difficulty 1 and difficulty 2, and it will find you players from other servers for the mutated expedition queue. So they've done a good job with that. And then we also have, from PvP, we have 3v3 Arena. Sadly, the queue for this doesn't really pop because it's not cross-server, so you only queue with people on your server. And as we talked about, if you're on a server like Sutek, you have basically nobody to play with, so if there's no cross-server capability, it just ain't happening, quite frankly, on a lot of New World servers. And then we have Outpost Rush over here. Outpost Rush, often considered one of the most replayable, probably the most popular format of PvP in New World. There's a good chance that if you go to the New World Twitch directory, probably like 90% of the streamers playing New World are going to be playing Outpost Rush because there's effectively nothing else to do. And this has been the case in New World for a very long time. The game effectively released with Outpost Rush. It came out. It wasn't fully working when New World came out, but we had Outpost Rush. Within the sort of first few months, at the beginning of 2022, we had Mutated Expeditions, and that's kind of been it. They haven't really pioneered or invented any new game modes. Like I say, there is 3v3 Arena, but Amazon, in their folly, have decided to not include cross-server capability for the new PvP game mode, only for the old PvP game mode, and they don't seem to be rushing to implement it for 3v3 Arena either. So this is what I'm trying to say, in that as a player in New World, your first 100 hours of the game are going to be really, really good, I would say. For most people, you're going to enjoy the leveling experience. Crafting, gathering, chopping down trees, just living and breathing in the world is amazing. Then when you get to level 60 or level 65, you're going to go get a few artifacts. You'll do some of the endgame quests. You might try Outpost Rush or Mutated Expedition and have a bit of fun. But that is it. Once you've done it once, you've kind of done it, and there is nothing else to do. And Amazon, again, doesn't really seem to be making an effort to add anything more for players to do for the foreseeable future. And this is the problem that New World has. This is why we have a lot of players that come in, because they are new and returning players and they enjoy the leveling experience. They get to the end game and realize there's nothing to do and they quit. And sadly, I think we're going to continue to have this issue for a long, long time until Amazon do actually address the lack of end game. And to that, I would say, Amazon, if you do happen to watch this video, first of all, the Sandworm, remember, you spent like hundreds of hours developing this boss fight. It's pretty cool. Maybe just get a guy to go in and update the loot table. Just maybe. Yeah, that's a crazy thought. The same with your Soul Trials as well. Amazon spend a lot of developer hours on these sort of single-player, one-time disposable boss battles. They're actually really cool. I might be able to flash some footage on the screen of them here. There's a boss battle that you do in the main storyline. In fact, there's several that you do in the main storyline, which are really cool. Unique mechanics. There's cutscenes. There's voice acting. What you could do is just scale these up to level 65 and have them be replayable instances. I'm sure it's going to involve a little bit of technical work, but at the same time, I think rather than needing to design brand new boss fights, you could just take some of the existing content in the game, which is fairly well developed. It's from the main storyline, aka the best part of the game, and just copy that over into endgame. I think copy pasting some old content as opposed to just having no content, in my opinion, that's a little bit of a free dub, you know, an easy win to go for there. Now, with that assessment of New World's current state out of the way, let's talk about the future of the game, because that's kind of what matters the most, right? Where is this game going from now? You know, if we look 2 years in the future, does New World have a lot of players? Is New World even still around anymore? Is it going to be getting shut down, like Reddit seems to suggest? Well, in order to talk about the future of New World, I briefly want to talk about the past. New World never really was intended to be an MMO from the get-go. In fact, it was more of a crafting, survival, sandbox game in its alpha state. You can see a little bit of footage here on the screen. Basically, you would land on a turnum, and with your friends, you could put together a company, go and build a base somewhere, and then attack other people, steal their resources, and just try and get a bigger base. So yeah, very Rust in its inception. But I guess Amazon at some point made a decision that that game wouldn't sell or wouldn't do too well, so instead they pivoted and made an MMORPG. But without really having any of the fundamentals or foundations for an MMORPG in the game other than, you know, just the combat and the overall audio-visual. There was no NPCs, there was no dungeons, there was no instance game modes or anything like that. On top of that, New World was also being built on a sort of brand new game engine. It was a heavily modified version of the Cry engine called Lumberyard, which has now been modified even more so into the Azoth engine. And to my understanding, working with this game engine is not easy. I've heard on sort of non-official accounts that the Azoth engine is a bit of a pain in the butt to work with. Not many devs do enjoy working with it. And to that extent, I think they have been making these strides, as you can see here, to kind of improve and modify and tweak and just generally make the game engine easier to work with. So one endeavor that Amazon's making currently is to basically change the way the combat code works in the game. So the way the game is coded as it pertains to the combat system and the animation system is being updated into C++. Now, again, I'm not super knowledgeable when it comes to programming, just in general, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'll link this in the description down below if you want to take a read through. You know, that there is some degree of technical know-how in order to understand what's going on here. But my understanding is that this is a step for Amazon to make the game easier to develop and iterate upon going forward, and hopefully also easier to find bugs and fix them as well. As right now, you know, you basically get your boss that comes into the room and is like, hey, I want you to tweak this number with the ice gauntlet, and then they open up the drawer where the ice gauntlet's supposed to be, and it's just filled with, you know, styrofoam, little bits of pasta, you know, torn up Lego pieces. It's just like all kinds of junk in there that shouldn't be in there, but that is just the code for New World. It's kind of a nightmare to work with. So with this change to the code, it maybe looks positive for New World in the future. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say you're being very optimistic here, Baggins, and you're right, but I do have hopes that this is going to make the game smoother going forward and allow them to develop at a much faster rate than what they're doing right now, because holy flip, it is slow right now. To add to that emphasis or argument on the game being slow, sadly, we are seeing another delay with Season 5. Now, I think the delay, Season 5, by the way, we talked about it briefly. Seasons in New World are basically just big updates. Every 3 months, they do a reasonably big update. We get a Season Pass, which is a battle pass that you can buy, and then there's usually like 1 or 2 sort of pieces of big content and a bunch of other bug fixes and quality of life along the way. So with Season 4, we got a new dungeon called the Winter Rune Forge, and they added in, you know, a sort of storyline that you could do one time with Season 4, and we got a bunch of new artifacts, which are like, you know, kind of special legendary weapons as well that came along. But anyway, Season 5 was slated to be on the 12th of March, which at time of recording, this would have been tomorrow. However, it's been delayed, and they haven't even given a date as when it's delayed to. Now, most likely the delay is because of their sort of reworked combat that they're doing, so they talk about artifacts here, but I think this is, you know, changing the code is a pretty big deal, and it is going to cause probably issues in the get-go, but in the long run, this could be pretty positive for New World. Another positive indicator for the future of New World, or negative depending on how you look at it, is the release of the game onto console. Now, to be fair and to be clear, Amazon have never outwardly stated, they've never said like, hey, we're releasing the game onto Xbox and PlayStation on this date, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest that this is what they are gearing up for. Case in point, right now, we have an article which was released at the end of February talking about controller support. So this is a feature that's coming in Season 5 as well, and it's actually pretty extensive. Having played with New World on a controller on the test server, they have clearly put quite a bit of work into making the controller work with New World. You know, they've got aim assist, target friction, target lock, which is a little bit worrying. It does only work in PvE right now. They've created new UI and UX, so as I say, there has been a lot of effort put into this, and they're continuing to add more to it in the future as well, in terms of giving you more layouts to use with button presses and allowing you to create your own sort of controller layout as well. Now, I've got to imagine that Amazon isn't doing this because they think it's what the current player base want. In fact, I would say that probably less than 1% of New World's current player base play the game with a controller, and I don't know what the overall number of people that play with a controller on PC is, but I would hazard a guess that it is a probably relatively small number. Now, this is not to say that it's not important. I know there are people out there who much rather play with a controller than a mouse and keyboard, but overall, considering the current asks of New World's player base for a new Outpost Rush map, more endgame, you know, just generally other features, and instead Amazon's like, hey, don't worry bro, I got you covered. I know you want a new Outpost Rush map, but how about you can play the game with controller? It's just, nobody really wants it. It's gotta be said. So I'm imagining that Amazon have a different player in mind. The reason why they're investing so much time into controller isn't just because they're dumb, it's because they have a you know, they have an image for New World in the future, and this is an important setup step, because obviously if the game doesn't work with a controller, it's not going to work on console, so we're kind of like the guinea pigs for that. There's another piece of evidence that points to that, and that is the fact that Amazon is actually developing another MMORPG right now, and it's actually the same devs. Like, the New World dev team are also working on a Lord of the Rings MMO. Now, we made a video on this topic nearly a year ago, and again, I'll link to that up in the top right if you want to check it out. But Amazon is publishing this game globally for PC and console. There's no release date yet, there are a limited amount of details, but it is basically the dev team. You can see Amazon Games Orange County, makers of the popular open world MMO game New World, are going to be leading development for this Lord of the Rings MMO. And it's going to be published on PC and consoles. And interestingly enough, they're also using the Azoth engine as well. So they got the same game engine and the same dev team making a new MMO that's going to be published on console. I would hazard a guess that they would probably want to publish their old MMO on console first, kind of just to see how it goes and to sort of iron out the kinks before they, you know, splash their big Lord of the Rings money, because you know that there was a lot of money spent on this deal, getting this hooked up, getting this going. I'm pretty sure they want to make it go well, you know, they want to do well. Another piece of evidence that would support the game coming to console is money. For those of you who don't know, New World sold millions of copies of the game on Steam. Now, this article here from Video Game Insights says that it sold 4.5 million units within its first month of release. So I've seen some people, I think it's like Forbes is floating the number 17 million copies out there. I think the answer is probably somewhere in between. But either way, millions of copies of the game at like $30 to $40 each. I think Amazon actually did make a pretty solid amount of cash when it comes to New World sales. And assuming that they could even just get half the number, and I think it would actually be more, because the number of people who play games on consoles is pretty insane. Like, it is a huge market out there. Even if they could only get half the numbers that they sold on Steam on console, I think they would consider it profitable as well. So the fact that the Lord of the Rings MMO is, you know, they want to publish that on console, the fact that they're investing so much time into controller support, and the fact that it would probably make them like quite a lot of money, for me, those are all quite clear indicators that this game is coming to console. And it would also support, you know, or it's also supported by evidence of the fact that there's very little going on in the game right now. I do believe that Amazon's current initiative is to kind of ignore the current state of the game and instead focus on the game for console. Now, hopefully, that's going to coincide with a fairly big update. We're probably going to be looking around that same time as we were in 2023 and 2022, you know, towards the end of the year. It's that sort of annual release where we get the Brimstone Sands, we get the Rise of the Angry Earth, and this time we're going to get console, probably with something else as well. Now, I could be completely wrong with this. This sort of end of the video is speculation here, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Am I just completely deluded? Is New World gone? Would the console release be successful? I've got to imagine that if we took this version of the game that we have right now in 2024 with the quality of life features, you know, fast travel is actually attainable. We have mounts, we have cross-server queuing, we have 3v3 arena, although nobody really queues for it. If we took all these features and dropped them back in 2021, that player base of, you know, 900,000 concurrent, it would drop down, but it wouldn't drop down as rapidly. And I think, like I say, a release on console, the game is close to being pretty good. We just need more endgame. We need more New World. So fingers crossed that they have the ability to implement that whilst also implementing it to console. If they're just going to drop it onto console just to get the sales and then focus on the Lord of the Rings MMO, I think that is also a likely outcome, a bit pessimistic, but either way, it means that the game isn't going to get shut down for probably another year. So with that very positive outlook on the current state of New World, you can do with the information what you will. I ultimately do still believe that New World is worth the purchase. It's currently right now, you factor in, it's $40 for the base game, $30 for the expansion, so it's a $70 game all in all, and you'll get about 200 hours of content currently, and then probably another 100 is going to be added at the end of this year. So yeah, $70 for 300 hours of gameplay. Is that worth it? I think so. And if you're crazy like me, you can stretch that out to be about 5,000 hours. Either way, New World is good. I don't think it's going away. In fact, I do think it is going to have quite a big player spike due to the console release. But what New World looks like in 2025, only time will tell. One big piece of information that we're still waiting for to confirm or deny whether some of the speculation towards the end of this video is going to be true is the roadmap. Now, Amazon is going to be releasing a roadmap in June. So a roadmap is basically what they have planned for the game for this year. Now, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that their plans for the year only come out halfway through the year, but that's Amazon Game Studios for you. They do things a little bit differently. So I am, of course, going to have a video on that, and if you want to stay up to date with New World news, subscribe, like the video, and of course, let me know your guys' comments down below. All right, I'm going to get out of here. It was fun recording this one. I wanted to get my thoughts out here, so yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you all in the next video.